Hello everyone, I made it. My name is Bea and thank you for viewing my presentation. I started preparation for this study earlier this year in the spring, and I started conducting my research back in August. My capstone project that I will be presenting to you today focuses on the social and cultural development of domestic transracial adoptees. So a study conducted by Leslie Hollingsworth in 2000 revealed that 71% of respondents approved of transracial adoption, believing that race should not be a factor, while 29% felt that adoption should only occur between a prospective parent and child who are of the same race. When Congress passed the Multi-Ethnic and Inter-Ethnic Placement Acts in 1994 and 1996, the National Association of Black Social Workers stated that adoption of Black children into white homes was a form of cultural genocide. And although these acts were passed in an effort to reduce wait time for children in foster care, the practice of transracial adoption is accused of stripping the child of their racial and cultural identity. But despite the disapproval by many, transracial and transcultural families continue to form. And today we have organizations like the North American Council on Adoptable Children that offer a variety of educational opportunities that are designed to help prospective parents understand what is involved when raising children that is of a different race. So bouncing off of Hollingsworth's study, my quantitative research question is to determine if adoptive families have racial preferences when adopting a transracial child. And digging deeper into the position of the NABSW, my qualitative research question is to determine the main factors that impact the development of an adopted child's racial identity and overall sense of well-being. So for my quantitative research, my data is retrieved from the American Community Survey, and my independent variable is the racial characteristics of a child, and my dependent variable is the parent's decision to adopt. And since both of my variables are categorical, I used a one variable chi-square test for statistical analysis with a 95% confidence level and p-value less than 0.05. And for my qualitative research, my target population is domestic transracial adoptees who are over 18 years old. Since the requirements of my target population are pretty specific, I will be using a purposive sampling to recruit my participants. And I actually did this by searching Facebook groups for transracial adoptees and reaching out to its members through Facebook Messenger. And I collected data in the form of in-depth interviews, which consisted of 10 main questions and several probing questions about their personal experiences as a transracial adoptee. And participants either typed or audio recorded their answers, which were manually transcribed by me. And using narrative analysis, participants' life experiences will be studied and interpreted. So instead of applying the chi-square formula and a calculator for my quantitative method, I created a table with the observed frequencies of transracially adopted children and their racial characteristics in the first row. And the second row lists the expected frequencies, which would determine that there is no relationship between the child's racial composition and the parent's decision to adopt. And by adding the totals in that fifth row, it gave me my chi-square test statistic of 253,241.32, which significantly exceeds the critical value of 12.592, which was computed using the 95% confidence level and 6 degrees of freedom. So differences between the expected and observed frequencies lead us to reject the null hypothesis. And since the data does not support the null hypothesis, we accept the alternative hypothesis, which concludes that adoptive families do have racial preferences when adopting a transracial child. And through qualitative method of narrative analysis, I found common themes within the personal experiences of all three participants. Although they varied in age, all three participants are biracial. They've all been adopted by white parents as infants, and they were all raised in predominantly white communities. And being raised by white parents in communities that are predominantly white as well often do not have leaders or figures of authority from different cultural backgrounds. This lack of representation, especially in one's own environment, can reinforce the struggles of transracially adopted children in terms of trying to develop their racial identity. So when asked how their adoptive families prepared for their adoption, all three participants claimed their families did nothing to educate themselves. And with minimal resources available at the time, their adoptive parents were forced to navigate through their transracial adoption experience on their own. So with young children not understanding the significance of being connected to their heritage, adoptive parents are left with the decision whether to preserve their culture. All three participants replied that their cultures were not celebrated and were even perceived negatively by their adoptive families. And if racial cultures were not celebrated, are racial differences even discussed? Because when asked how their adoptive parents first discussed racial differences with them, all three participants actually revealed that it was actually never brought up. And adoptive families may use cultural assimilation or the colorblind approach to avoid such discussions, but racial differences will be evident and unable to ignore. These issues should be addressed because leaving them unresolved only leads to more complications down the road. And when the participants were asked what were the main challenges that they faced regarding their racial identity, all three replied that it was having to educate themselves and connect with their heritage at a later age. Although Aaliyah learned Spanish in her teens, she still lacks a sense of belonging. When Tatami was 18 years old, she felt lost, but she did everything she could to immerse herself back into the Black community. And Sarah claims that she had to learn how to become Black when she moved to the projects at 22 years old. So with all the challenges that they encountered, I asked the participants what the hardest part of being a transracial adoptee was, to which all three replied that they feel alienated, lost, and that they don't belong. And connecting and interacting with people of the same racial and ethnic background not only reinforces cultural identity, but it also validates racial existence. And having a sense of belonging plays a key role in the confidence and maintenance of an individual's sense of well-being, especially that of a transracial adoptee. So to overcome these issues, transracial adoptees must learn to cope with their trauma. While two of the participants cope by connecting with other transracial adoptees, two participants also cope through the families that they have created themselves. And connecting with people that are the same race, as well as other transracial adoptees, can take on the role of an extended family, especially when the adoptee does not receive support or empathy from their own. Because when asked how their current relationships are with their adoptive parents, all three participants stated that there is little to no contact. In addition, participants were also asked if they have made contact with their biological families and what their relationship is like now. And similar to their relationship with their adoptive parents, all three participants currently have little to no contact or are estranged from their biological families for various reasons. A great deal of support and understanding is necessary for transracial adoptees who are vulnerable to identity crises. When adoptive parents, as well as biological parents, fail to understand, take accountability for, or accept the child's pain, it's bound to create emotional tension between them. So when asked if they have seek support, all 3 participants replied yes, which was a no-brainer since that is where and how they were recruited for this project. However, all 3 participants take part in additional activities for support on top of the Facebook TRA adoptee group that I found them in. Tatami records and posts videos on her own YouTube channel, Tatami's Diary, in which she discusses transracial adoption and other life experiences. Sarah started her very own Facebook group called Transracial Adoptee Empowerment, and Aaliyah attends therapy sessions to help guide her through personal and painful moments. And therapists not only provide support, but with the use of empathy, skill, and humanity, they also assist in the development of stronger emotional skills and cognitive skills. And these skills are crucial to have, especially for one who is a transracial adoptee, because the general perception of transracial adoption may be viewed as a beautiful experience. However, many tend to overlook the dark side of this complex journey. Trauma is defined as an emotional or behavioral response to an overwhelming prior event, eliminating the individual's ability to cope, leading them to feel helpless. And the participants were asked to use 3 words to describe their lives growing up as transracial adoptees, to which this is how they replied. And transracial adoption trauma may result from mental health issues relating to the individual's formation of their racial identity, their sense of familial belonging, or the authentication of their sense of self. So participants have been vocal that their adoptive families lack the necessary knowledge to provide them the support that they needed as children. So when asked if they would recommend transracial adoption based on their personal experiences, all 3 participants replied saying that they would not recommend transracial adoption to others, mainly because of the challenges they endured regarding their racial identity. Sarah claims that white people don't know anything about Black people and that they are incapable of raising Black children because they have no idea what it's like to be them. She also adds that if you want to help Black people, then help their entire family instead of adopting their children. Aaliyah replied with a statement similar to that of the NABSW, saying that transracial adoption is a form of cultural genocide and that Black and brown children are disproportionately placed with white parents and doing more harm than good for communities of color. Aaliyah also suggests that people should just focus on family preservation instead of transracially adopting other children. And Tatami wishes that people would support communities to support themselves rather than adopting their children into a culture that is not originally theirs. She then explains that extreme loss adoption involves more than just the loss of birth parents, but it includes the loss of a culture, the loss of a language, loss of a family, and overall history. So although I am able to make conclusive statements on my research, it is important to note that there are several limitations that were encountered throughout the process of this study. While conducting a 1-variable chi-square test, it determined that adoptive parents did have racial preferences. However, it did not provide the racial composition of adoptive parents and the racial composition of the child they adopted. And also the data did not provide reasons why adoptive parents chose the particular race that they did. And while similar patterns were found within the narrative analyses of all 3 participants, the sample size is still too small. Also, their adoptions took place between 30 to 50 years ago, which makes it difficult to determine that their views are a current reflection of the general population of transracial adoptees today. So based on my findings, I believe more research should be conducted on transracial adoptees, monitoring their progress in the formation of their racial identity and overall sense of well-being into their adult years. Future studies can determine if transracial adoptees are utilizing the resources that are available to their highest advantage, and more importantly, with access to professional and communal support. Future studies can also determine whether adoptive families are making the necessary efforts to ensure that their child has developed a healthy sense of well-being. So for this project, I would like to give a sincere thank you to the participants of this project, Sarah, Tatami, and Aaliyah. Your willingness to share and your openness to tell your story is worth more than any Amazon gift card I can gift you for your time and vulnerability. Your personal experiences are priceless, and I truly want to thank you for sharing them with me. And I also want to thank Dr. Ingraham for successfully conducting this course in this global pandemic. Thank you for guiding me through this project, for understanding me with the challenges I faced, and for being available to answer all my questions. I hope you're pleased with this project, and I hope that it reflects the lessons that you taught in this course. And last but not least, I would like to thank you, my classmates, for viewing my presentation, as well as your comments and your feedback. It's been a rough year, but we made it. Thank you so much.